Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice President, Watchman, and members of the Commission and members of the listening audience. Yat Shay Michelle Crank, Dashidine, Ado Tratnasa Ninishlo, Nash Edutapaha, Bashishin, Ado Ye Dene, Twitchitni, Dashache, Ado Dashanala A, Tlizathane, Accident, Nasha A, Lay, Not Ahsanolia, Ade, Hosto de Shana Nishish, Di Kobana Bana El Dehi. Ashana Nishish Ado Achi we'll start the meeting, and I'd like to again introduce myself. My name is Michelle Crank. I'm a member of the staff at the Independent Redistricting Commission, and this is my homeland. And so I'd like to welcome everybody. So I'm handing it. Oh, I'm going to introduce Catherine Arviso, so she can do the Pledge of Allegiance for us. Ms. Arviso, if you'll come up.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Commissioner Mill.
I now would like to call to order the next meeting of a listening tour of the Independent Redistricting Commission. This is our 6th meeting. We'd like to remind the public that COVID-19 is still prevalent. We ask that you follow the Arizona Department of Health guidelines. If you're not fully vaccinated, you should wear a mask in a public space. If you'd like to participate from home, each of these meetings is being streamed through WebEx. Please note that if you'd like to make a public comment, you may do so by signing in with staff and filling out the public comment card. If you haven't already done so, please fill out the Community of Interest survey. There's a QR code on signs at the sign-in desk and on the public comment cards that will direct you to the link. Please see a member of staff if you have any questions. We have an American Sign Language interpreter joining us virtually, and we will have interpreters and headsets available for those in attendance. We also have a transcriptionist who will be transcribing every meeting. Please speak slowly and clearly so we have a clear record of your input. Will the interpreters in attendance introduce themselves now?
Hi, my name is Tiana. I am one of the interpreters, and my team today is Jonathan.
Yat she ya Twitchitni na Kodi Nabashishin touching the Che 20 National Anson at City Senior in Shia, Dak London Nasha, Akashiaho, Adawa, Shed the Chidos Yaho, Akashagan. Hello, my name is Anson at City Senior, and I'm 60 years old. I was born and raised and living in mini farms today. So I'm an interpreter here at Chinle. Thank you.
Thank you. And at this time, we'll introduce ourselves. I'm David Meal. I'm one of the 5 commissioners. I'm from Tucson.
Hello, my name is Erica Newberg. I am the independent chair, and I am from Maricopa County.
And Derek, Mr. Watchman.
Oh, here David and here Erica. Yat she Derek Watchman. I skinny and shla auto tohana bashishin cutna zani deshiche auto tabahashanella. Winter Rock is my home, and I am the Apache County Democratic representative to the Arizona Independent Districting Commission. So yat everybody.
And now we'll move on to agenda item 2, a presentation of the process that we'll all be going through. First is a representative of our legal team.
Commissioner Mill, if I can allow the Honorable President of the Navajo Nation, President Jonathan Nez, to come up and give an opening comment, if that is okay.
That is fine. We had it scheduled after the presentation, but we would love to have it now if you would like. So,
Yes, thank you, sir.
thank you.
Mr. President.
Good afternoon, Chair Newberg and committee members. Aro Mr. Watchman yate shna. Aro are Arnoldso tanike nalgido daisenolts agi. She kodosh dej she ein shlido tnessa nebashchin do tkodchini da shchiro tkhachini da shnala. Nkhal tegi e kunal sospich Adelia the Arizona Independent Redistricting Committee. Judi ya kode the nebikeya pakade asato sesta bedi no jo even na che kwa nkhal te aro kono ni keni hinna lana danzen gishi kodobiche ashchane Adel neto le to ni hido kodo Navajo Nation Office of the President, Vice President has added do Nakhayel to Kodo and Shin Kodo, which you could neto le Konat Anin Nakhal Degi. Ado o here than he nido le to here where do qua do Bikidil ni la Kodo Asian Benache Econ Nakhayel Mr. Watchman Edo by Henitz Bananish Inigi. First, I want to honor my Navajo people by speaking our language. It helped win wars, and it helped unite folks throughout this country. And as we did the Pledge of Allegiance, there was mention of unity and fair and equity as well. I want to welcome the Arizona Independent Redistricting Committee to the great Navajo Nation, sovereign lands, and I appreciate everyone following the protocols that have been put in place for this pandemic that has swept across this country and seen high rates of positive cases all around us. But let me just say, we still have low numbers here, so we must be doing a good job. And it's because really the great work of our Navajo citizens following through these very tough protocols. We still have a mask mandate, never changed since last year, and high percentage of vaccination here on the Navajo Nation. And that is the reason why we were open to having these hearings to take place here on the Navajo Nation. So I'm just here to do the welcome, and if I, Chair and members of the Commission, is this where I will also do the comments? Okay. Again, I would like to okay. I just saw the chair nod, so that's why I was ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we will turn to the presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan Regula. I'm a lawyer with the law firm Snell & Wilmer, and I'm joined by my colleague, Hassan Summers from the law firm of Ballard Spahr. Together, our firms represent the Independent Redistricting Commission. The point of the presentation is twofold. Number one, we'd like to help you understand a little bit what the Independent Redistricting Commission is, and what also is the process in terms of the redistricting that will be taking place. So a good place to start is always going to be at the Arizona Constitution, be at the U.S. Constitution, excuse me. The U.S. Constitution requires regular reapportionment of congressional districts. The states are responsible for creating their own maps. Every 10 years, a new redistricting occurs. Historically, from 1912 to 2000, Arizona's legislature controlled redistricting. Then, based upon an initiative passed by the voters, the Arizona Constitution was amended and control of redistricting was given to an independent commission. According to Article 4 of the Arizona Constitution, 5 members are required for the Independent Redistricting Commission. No more than 2 members may be from the same political party. and 1 member must be an independent. Their current members are Erica Newberg, who is the chair and an independent, 2 Democrats, Derek Watchman and Shireen Lerner, and 2 Republicans, David Meal and Douglas York. Article 4 of the Arizona Constitution also provides 6 goals for redistricting. First, districts shall comply with the U.S. Constitution and the U.S. Voting Rights Act. Second, congressional districts shall have equal population to the extent practicable, and state legislative districts shall have equal population to the extent practicable. Districts shall be geographically compact and contiguous to the extent practicable. 4, district boundaries shall respect communities of interest to the extent practicable. 5, to the extent practicable, district lines shall use visible geographic features, city, town, and county boundaries, and undivided census tracts. And then 6, and finally, to the extent practicable, competitive districts should be favored, where to do so would create no significant detriment to the other goals. Of those 6 goals, the one that we're here this afternoon is to talk about communities of interest. Regarding the projected timeline, from July to August, we'll be conducting what we're doing right now, which is the initial listening tour. And in August, census data will be released and processed. At this moment in time, we do not have census data yet. In September, a grid map will be drawn and adopted. It's important for you to know that each independent redistricting commission starts from scratch. Thus, the old district lines are wiped clean, and the grid map only reflects 2 of the 6 criteria the commissioners are required to consider. 1, equal population, and 2, compactness and contiguousness. Commissioners then modify the grid maps to account for the other 4 criteria I highlighted earlier, including respect for communities of interest. From September to October, possible map drafts are developed, and eventually an official map draft is adopted. From October to November, there's a minimum 30-day public comment period on the official draft map. And then finally, from December to the end of the project, revisions to the draft map will be conducted, and finally, a final plan will be adopted. As I mentioned before, public involvement is what we're doing here today, and that is one of the 6 goals. There are 3 specific types of public involvement that you should be aware of. 1, commission meetings are open to the public. There, you can submit public comments at irc.az.gov/public-meetings. Second, initial input on communities of interest. Again, this is why we are here today. Specifically in terms of community of interest, and this will be discussed a little more in the presentation a little later, we're looking for information for what geographic areas or neighborhoods should be considered when drawing draft maps. Third, and finally, in terms of public involvement, input on draft maps. And you can provide input 3 different ways. You can submit proposed draft maps and comments on in-progress draft maps prior to the IRC selection of an official draft map. You can submit proposed revisions and comments after IRC selection of official draft maps. And finally, you can submit comments on near final maps. And with that, I will pass the baton to Mark.
Thank you. My name is Mark Flahan. I'm with Timmins, part of our mapping consultant team. Part of my team that's also here today is Ivy Beller-Sikansky with NDC as our demographer. And I have Parker Bradshaw, who is our coordinator on our project. What I want to talk to you guys about today is the 3 empowerment tools that we have for you citizens to be able to interact with the IRC. The first one is a social economic report. It's an interactive website that is available with social economic data, and we will get into that more in a slide right after this. The second mapping tool that we have is our community of interest survey. This is why we're here today. You probably have seen some QR codes while on your way in that will allow you to scan it on your phone, and it'll take you to the community of interest survey. And what this will allow you to do is draw your very own community of interest, putting the power into your hands. The third tool that we have that we're working on setting up right now is our actual redistricting system. The system will allow you to be able to draw and submit your own proposed map changes to the commission. So the first empowerment tool that we have today is the social economic report. On the right side of the screen, you can see a screen capture of it. It has 14 different demographic points, and it will allow you to see these demographics across the entire state of Arizona. You do see an acronym there that says CVAP, that is Citizen Voting Age Population. The next tool that we have today is the Community of Interest Survey, and that's why we're here today, to learn about your community of interest. On the left side, you'll see the introduction to the survey, and on the right side, you will see an actual map. This will allow you to draw your actual community of interest boundary. That way we can get an accurate representation of what you are telling us today. So we encourage you to go online and fill out the community survey after this meeting or during this meeting on your phone. And for the community of interest survey, it is available 24/7 on the web, accessible at any time for you. With that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Ivy, who is going to talk to you about what is a community of interest.
Thank you, Mark. So let's talk today about what is a community of interest. It is a geographic area of people who share a common story or connection. That connection can be common social interests, shared demographic characteristics, similar impacts from a legislative or congressional issue, or any other connection that leads people in a given area to believe they would benefit from being kept together, united in one legislative or congressional district. As you think about your community, think about the factors that Mark listed on the community survey, which says to please think about you and your neighbors. Do you have similar employment? Do you rely on similar public services? Do you belong to the same neighborhood? Are you impacted by some regional environmental concern? Is your community defined by similar regional land use issues, transportation concerns, languages spoken, community celebrations or traditions, or similar other issues or characteristics? Any of these characteristics can define a community of interest. Next slide. Now it is your turn. As they travel the state on this listening tour, the commissioners want to hear from you. What do you want the commissioners to consider as they draft and ultimately adopt their map? How do you define your community of interest? Again, using the tools Mark described, and in your testimony today, we want to hear what brings your community of interest together and what are your community's boundaries. Remember, the commissioners can incorporate your community into their maps only if you let us know where your community is on the map. Thank you so much for being here today. Now I will turn this back over to the commission staff to begin taking your comments.
If you would please read the rules for our engagement today.
Citizens may only be recognized by the chair or the presiding officer of the meeting if the chair is in compliance with Arizona on the posted agenda, which is limit. Okay. Oh, they're getting both. Now I lost my place. Speakers are also requested to limit their comments to approximately 3 minutes. Additionally, speakers are required to follow proper decorum. Speakers must use appropriate language. Foul and/or abusive language will not be tolerated. Any speaker failing to follow proper decorum or any other guidelines may be asked to leave. Any breach of the peace or disruption of a commission public hearing may be cause of report to law enforcement, arrest, and prosecution. If someone has expressed the same sentiment, you do not need to speak in order to have your comment recorded. As long as you have filled out the survey, your input will be received and considered by this commission. Everyone is welcome to speak should you choose to do so. Opposing viewpoints may be expressed by the citizens present. As a courtesy, citizens are reminded to address their comments to the chair and the commission, and not to audience present. Please show respect for all speakers and avoid personal comments. Remember, the commission must hear all sides of an issue to make an informed decision. And again, if you will please silence your phones, put them on vibrate. We ask that you do so at this time. And I would like to start the public comment section by Chairman Meehl.
Yeah, I want to just thank the public for being here. We're anxious to hear your comments. We really appreciate your attendance, and we welcome the Honorable President of the Navajo Nation, Jonathan Nez, to give the opening remarks. Thank you.
Chair and commission members, Yatse, greetings from the Navajo people. I'd once again like to thank the commission for considering our letter requesting that there be hearings held on the Navajo Nation. Excuse me. The Navajo Nation is the largest tribe in the United States in terms of population and land base. We are within the states of New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah, 27,000 square miles, very rural nation, and 400,000 enrolled members. The largest and most populated portion of the Navajo Nation is in Arizona. According to the 2010 census, there were 173,667 Navajos living on the nation, with 101,835 Navajos living on the Arizona portion of the Navajo Nation. We expect those numbers to have increased in the last census, despite the expected undercount. As you know, we are going through a pandemic, and because of the pandemic, it is projected that there has been a large undercount of our Navajo people, as high as 20% undercount, and I will forward that information through our written comments to the commission. As you may know, Native Americans have been historically undercounted in the census more than any other ethnic group Therefore, it is highly critical that the nation's citizens have the ability to elect representatives of their choice, representatives who will champion their causes and advocate for them. We did this, and it, as was mentioned, happens every 10 years. And as a former Navajo County Board of Supervisor and a former lawmaker of the Navajo Nation Council, we followed through those protocols in 2010 and were successful in redistricting areas to elect people of our choosing. The communities of interest, you know, we're in 3 states, but we're not able to have those 3 states have 1 or 2 or even more congressional representatives. And that there is communities of interest. The Navajos in New Mexico, the Navajos in Utah, and the Navajos in Arizona. But we are looking forward to these deliberations, and this is the first of many discussions that we will have pertaining to redistricting. The commission needs to recognize the participation by those with a diverse set of interests, as well as those who hold a critical stake in the outcome of the redistricting process. As Navajo people, we are the data experts of our own communities. On behalf of the Navajo Nation, I respectfully request the commission to recognize the political boundaries of the Navajo Nation as a community of interest, and to recognize that our Navajo communities need to be kept together. There are 3 significant reasons why the nation should not be included with other non-Native communities, all which lead to the same conclusion. Life on the nation is much different than what is experienced by most Arizonans. First, the nation occupies some of the most remote, challenging, and sparsely populated terrain in the country. The population density on the nation is estimated at 6.3 per square mile, compared to the density of, let's say, Flagstaff, which is estimated to be 409.5 per square mile. Second, 1/3 of the nation lives in poverty, which is more than twice the poverty rate in the state of Arizona. Only 4% of the nation's membership has obtained a college degree, and over 70% of households speak a language other than English. Third, the nation is a racial and language minority under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, and is covered for language assistance under Section 203 of the Voting Rights Act. A fair redistricting must give the nation's citizens the power to hold our congressional and state leaders accountable. It's important that we as Navajo people have a fair opportunity to elect leaders of our choice. Leaders who have a deep understanding of the socioeconomic hardships the nation's citizens face day after day. Therefore, we ask that you keep the nation within a single community of interest. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners, for the time. And I don't know if I yield to questions, but I'll turn the time back over to the Commission. Thank you so much. Heightland.
Thank you very much. And we'll now move on to other speakers. And we'll read off the name of the next speaker and then the following one in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we're going to go ahead and start off with Eager. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Lori, over in Eager.
Thank you, everyone. Can you give me a thumbs up if you hear me? Okay, awesome. Thank you. So we are joining you from beautiful Eager, Arizona, where we have a great group in attendance. And our first speaker is going to be David Neef, followed by David Peelman.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. thank you for this opportunity. I come to you today as both a citizen and a professional public servant. My name is Dave Mears, and I live in Vernon, Arizona, and I serve as fire chief for that fire district in Vernon. In my capacity as the fire chief, I've had many occasions to not only visit many legislators, and I've been able to walk the prestigious halls of our Capitol chambers many times. I also personally have met with Representative Keller and Associates, who represented District 7 a couple of years ago. As a result of that meeting, though, I wanted to bring up some things that were difficult for them to understand and was difficult to find good solutions for us, given the different way of their lifestyle. And I want to commend the gentleman who spoke, Mr. Nez, who started off this process, making sure he was covered for his people. That's my intent to do that for mine. We live in southern Apache County, and I have on many occasions the opportunity to work with the folks in Navajo County and all of our communities south of the I-40, and even on down into Global. We have many similar interests, we have many similar needs, and we need problems solved at our level. The problems I had with the meetings with the legislatures before was they were going to put money on my issues. Well, money would have been nice, money would have helped, but what I needed was help at not that level, I needed help at the local level. They had no ties to our community, they had no ties to the people in my area, and therefore they had no understanding of the little issues that I needed dealt with at my level. Therefore, when you establish a new legislative district for Arizona, I strongly recommend that you consider the like and similar people groups south of the I-40. Those are the folks that we need to have banded together so that we too can elect those folks to represent us, that understand our lifestyles, have our needs, and also understand how to create, develop, and put together proper solutions that will help us at our level. This is such an important move for Arizona and for the future, and especially for us. Apache County is one of the second forest counties. I believe it's the second forest in the nation. We need help. We need a lot of help in our communities. So does southern Navajo County. We need to be in one district together represented by people like us, people who work with us, people who know us. Whatever opportunity you have to make that happen for us, I respectfully request that that's what you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is David and he's followed by Kim Trickey.
Good afternoon, Chairman Newberg, Commissioners. My name is David Kuhlman. I've lived in Vernon for the last 16 years with my bride, Kathy. I work as a realtor. My business takes me all over the state of Arizona, but primarily within the White Mountain Association of Realtors District. I have brought it anyway to kind of tell you where we're at. I don't have video, so I'll just kind of explain it to you. Where I work from obviously Vernon and Silver all the way over to Alpine, Springerville, Eager, sometimes St. John, sometimes Holbrook, Solo, Pine Top, Lakeside, Holbrook, Eager, or I mentioned, and all the way over to Payson. These are the communities in which I live. These are the communities in which I play. These are the communities in which I pay money. These are the communities which I belong to community, religious, political, and religious organizations. This is my community, as most of the people sitting in this audience right now. I've traveled LD7, and like I said, I have a training aid to show you, but I'll explain it to you. It currently runs from south of Alpine up to Four Corners, across the Arizona-Utah border to Page, Fredonia, and a little zig and a zag down to West Grand Canyon, and then back down along, following roughly the I-40 corridor, along to Winslow, Holbrook, and back down to Show Low. This is an immense territory. This is the largest single
legislative district in the United States. It is 338,000 square miles. As President Nez alluded to or mentioned, it's as large as the state of Indiana, and within this district, it has the Navajo Nation, which is as large as the state of West Virginia. The Navajo Nation population makes up 3/4 of this district, far outnumbering any other like-minded community of interest, culturally, business-wise, problem-solving, recreationally, religiously. These disparate communities do have one commonality, and that is a demarcation line roughly north and south of Interstate 40. North of Interstate 40, their issues are terribly different than they are south of I-40. To give you some ideas of the issues that we face down here that are not faced north of I-40, we have the forestry programs of Forestry, which is a forestry restoration initiative, which is going to limit access to the forest. That's it? Oh, okay. We also have the Forestry Department's Transportation Management Plan. Again, limiting access to our forest, the largest ponderosa forest in the world. This is one large community of interest, much as the Navajo Nation. The problems we face in these forestry issues is wolf predation. This is not a problem north of I-40. This is not a problem that is faced anywhere except in this forest. We have different outlooks on business and business entrepreneurship and the development, whereas the Navajo Nation has a very tedious and time-consuming process to create a business, going through 19 different agencies and initialed by the President Nez. We don't have that down here. We can build our own business on our own initiative in a very short amount of time. The interests that we have down here are copper, forest, cattle, business development. One of the things I really want to talk about is problem solving. Down here south of I-40 on fee simple land, our problems we solve at our local and state level. We have very little interest in solving issues at a federal level, whereas the Navajo Nation operates largely as a nation state. We do not operate as a nation state. We operate as a legislative district and a county and small communities. The Navajo Nation receives funding from the county, from the state, and from the federal government, whereas our area only receives county and state funding. Are we running out of time?
You're done.
All right. Commissioner, thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to say a few words, and I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Kim Trickey, followed by Mackie Trickey, followed by Susan Kelly. Did you hear that? Kim Trickey, Mackie Trickey, and then Susan Kelly.
Thank you for your time and hearing our concerns. My name is Mackie Trickey. I was born here in this community of Springville, Eager. I grew up in a ranching family. When I was young, ranching and the logwoods were the main industries in our communities. Over the years, these have greatly been depleted. We are concerned about the districting of our voting area. Over the years, there's been the distrust and has greatly increased. We feel like in small communities of ours that our voice is not heard, that over the years that we've been thrown into districts that include large metropolitan areas, areas of the reservation, and others where our concerns and voice gets diluted. We would strongly urge you, as you look at the redistricting of our area, that you would consider some of the previous speakers' thoughts of putting like-minded people, like communities that have the same issues. Those people can then, their voice can be heard in our congressional legislature. We would appreciate your consideration in those matters, and I will leave that at this, or leave my comments at this, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Susan Kelly, and then we'll send it back to Window Rock.
So thank you for your time. Hello, my name is Susan Kelly. I actually live in Pima County in Marana. I have a cabin up here in Greer, so that's why I chose to come here. I have lived in Arizona since 1999, with the exception of 3 years where I lived in New Mexico. And I've lived all those years in different parts of Pima County, from Tanque Verde Valley to Green Valley to the foothills, and now Dove Mountain and LD11. My community is the greater Tucson, Marana, Oro Valley area. My 2 sons are graduates of Catalina Foothills schools and are now both active duty military officers and deployed overseas. While raising my sons, their dad and I were very active in Boy Scouts, sports, and the high school band in the Tucson area. The town of Marana is not nearly as rural as it used to be. We have lots of restaurants and businesses and churches and are growing. I like living in a medium-sized town with neighbors who like to do the same things as I do. Those things include running, cycling, relaxing, raising good citizens, developing the next generation of science and technology knowledgeable humans. I spend most of my time in Marana Oro Valley region. I would like our district to be nearly whole and not divided as we have been. I should not be in the same district with someone who is in Casa Grande. They have a lot different problems than we do in the Marana Oro Valley area. I believe my district should be oriented east to west, as this is the community I live in, not a north to south district as we are today. Thank you so much for your time.
In Window Rock, the first one is Stephen Key. The second one is Laval. Is Stephen C. Begay. Stephen Key.
Ila banda khalab la gana dana seneki an ki khata hasna ki shib nikesn Navajo Jota da States Ede Yisiba Huint in Hadan Sleha out Z Doppelt
Yes, testing the mics.
Understand you here. The translators are.
Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Okay. Hopefully that fixes our issue. Sorry about that. Can I go? You can keep going, yeah.
Because our commissioners have to understand the comments that you're making.
It never fails. You're supposed to be ready and have your translator on hand. What kind of operation are you running? Die kan tjeje zel en has anaje. Kut sandat la apete yande Ni kielto kut akat koton ki nasho do kwasit nashtia na chontas Zo kisna nasto desnil tsai eben ya ki kayato ni shikon chol lita do na den ni taten no kai. She make sure what I said is on record.
We do apologize for those that are listening on the stream system. We have some Navajo speakers here in Window Rock, and so we're getting headsets for our commissioners and our attorneys so that they'll have the ability to understand what our Navajo speakers are saying. So if you'll give us I'll turn it back over to Lori and Igor.
Great, thank you. Our first speaker is Spence Udall, followed by Eugene Paplowski, and then Doris Paplowski.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. I appreciate your time and attention to this matter, and I don't envy the job that you guys have in front of you. My name is Spence Udall. I currently serve as the mayor of the city of St. John's. My dad, he served as the Apache County attorney for almost 30 years, so I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time up on the nation. These meetings are tough because sometimes they feel almost confrontational because there is a difference. And the differences aren't necessarily bad. They're just differences. I always appreciated the time that I got to spend on the nation because their traditions are not my traditions, and it was something that I was able to learn from. But therein lies the problem. Not necessarily that there are differences, but those differences in the areas have proper representation. Just to highlight this, in our little town, we are currently in a lawsuit or litigation, if you will, with the tribe, with the Navajo Nation and the Hopi tribe over water. When we started in this litigation, we paid $6,000 a year, which that was something that we could handle. Since then, we have done this for about 7 years now, I believe. That has swelled to well over $100,000 a year. For a town of our size going up against the Navajo Nation, where I believe they have something like a $1.25 billion budget, you can understand how difficult that is. It's a fight we can't afford, but it's a fight we can't afford to fight. It's something that we have to do. And it's almost impossible for our current representatives to represent us and also members of the nation, kind of that one man can't serve two masters type thing. So I would agree with President Nez that the nation and the folks south of the nation should probably be separated, in that we have more similar interests and more things in common. And like I said before, having the differences isn't necessarily bad. It's just that we need to have proper representation for both parties in the interests. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Eugene Paplowski, followed by Doris Paplowski, followed by Jay Platt.
Thank you, Commission. I am a retired teacher, but also an entrepreneur, and I want to address some of those issues that separate us, that we struggle here, and that is the small business issue that we have, and has been brought up earlier, family difference issues, and environmental issues. And those issues need to be addressed for you, which is your best interest, and then for us, which is our best interest. And they are not the same. And so that I'm asking that we would become our own, part of our own district with the like people in our area, Sholo, et cetera, because of those issues. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Doris Paplowski, followed by Jay Platt, followed by Delos Bond.
Hi, I'm Doris Paplowski from Vernon, Arizona. I grew up on a sheep ranch in Wyoming. In that environment, it was a little bit similar to the Navajo culture. However, Vernon area, well, everything has been mentioned before. Our cultural differences are not just skin deep. It's the environment, it's the demographics, it's the geography. The mayor of St. John's stated it very well. I have a deep respect for the Navajo people, for the Apache people. My husband taught on both reservations. I got to know people in a way that I was unable to relate to them before. And I really respect their keeping their cultural identity in saying the Pledge of Allegiance in both languages. But unity does not mean that we need to address our needs equally. There's a big difference between unity and equity and equality. So let's address those issues, separate the money and the needs, and use it appropriately. Thank you for your consideration.
Our final three speakers are Delos Bond, Tony Lindsay, and Brandy Ovison.
Thank you very much to the Commission for hearing our concerns and issues. My name is Jay Platt. I live in St. John's, where I operate cattle ranches with 2 married sons. I also sit on the board of our local irrigation district. We would propose that a legislative district be created of the reservation portions of Gila, Graham, Apache, Navajo, and Coconino counties, together with the city of Flagstaff. This would preserve intact the unique cultural, linguistic communities of interest for the reservations. It would allow them to deal with the BIA on educational matters as well as tribal-operated schools. It would also better position them to deal with the IHS on healthcare issues. The city of Flagstaff is something of a shopping, medical, and educational center for many reservation communities. The other legislative districts should be comprised of the non-reservation portions of those same counties together with Greenlee County. Our communities of interest are natural resource issues with livestock and mining. We deal with the Forest Service, the BLM, on catastrophic fires in large measure caused by agency mismanagement. Our school districts and school boards deal with the State Board of Education, not the BIA. We play one another, our schools, in sports. The water adjudications that have just been alluded to are an extremely important issue, and Mayor Udall actually understated the amounts that are being spent. In Gila County, Gila Valley area, and southern Navajo and Apache counties, we are each spending now in the aggregate between the communities' irrigation districts $100,000 per month. We need legislative representation and congressional representation to craft a settlement. In terms of a congressional district, CD1 now includes Santan Valley, Casa Grande, and portions of Pima County, specifically the Oro Valley area, with whom we have no communities of interest. Cochise County is in CD2 with the city of Tucson, with whom it has no communities of interest. We would propose that the counties of Coconino, Yavapai, Apache, Navajo, Gila, Graham, Greenlee, and Cochise County be placed in a single congressional district whereby we may deal with the unique communities of interest which we have educationally on water issues, dealing with federal agencies, wolf depredation, so on and so forth. Thank you again.
Next up is Tony Lindsay, followed by, Delos Bond, followed by Tony Lindsay, followed by Brandy Ovison.
Chairman, Commissioners, thank you very much for having this this ability to be able to let us give our input. As you know, CD1 splits the following counties: Yavapai, Gila, Pinal, and even takes in small portions of Pima and Maricopa. It is our belief that the district should be more county oriented, should be able to fit the county's boundaries more evenly. And by splitting the southern half of Apache County and Navajo County and making the reservation their own district would not only be more beneficial for the reservation, but it would be beneficial for the non-reservation itself. Thank you for your time.
Next up, we have Tony Lindsay, and then our last speaker is Brandy Ovison.
Madam Chairman, Commissioners, I appreciate your time in conducting this. As you know, we belong as a nation to a constitutional republic. It's a representative type of government. You, as commissioners, have the ability to represent our needs based on what was explained by Snell Wilmer as communities of interest. It is apparent to me from what's been stated by those on the Navajo Reservation here that we have different and varied communities of interest. And if you were to follow our recommendations, you could make both of us feel like we're being represented in a representative republic. An example of how that's not happening right now, if I look in our little community of St. John's, we're part of Apache County, we're the county seat, yet in our county, most Navajos vote as a block as Democrats, whereas most people in southern Apache County, in these communities, are Republicans. We have no say in our county government because we're so disparate in our political thinking and how things go. We feel like we're taxpayers without representation because we don't have a lot of say in how our money gets spent. I would like to see our communities of interest better represented by legislation or legislative districts being more representative of the people that live there in these communities of interest. Secondly, I really support what's been said by Mr. Jay Platt. He said it beautifully, and I would like to second what he stated. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker here in Eager is Brandy Oveson.
Hi, I'd like to thank the IRC and those assisting with this meeting for their time that they put in today. My name is Brandy Oveson. I teach government at the high school in St. John's, Arizona, as a part of Apache County. I agree with much of what's been said today, so I will keep this short. I believe in equal representation. It's been very frustrating to be grouped with communities that are accountable to different organizations and to different laws. I think it would be a boon to our area to separate into better suited communities of interest, and I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you, and we will send it now back to Window Rock.
Our next speaker is Luva DeHozy, and if I can ask the Navajo translator to step up to the mic, and she'll be doing the translation from English to Navajo for those that are listening.
Okay. Yat the Phoenix was today Kaji. Ado Kote Shik Ada Nosengi Kote Danaso Tangi Sto. Ikodo Ea Altasakotis. Easy in Shaki a Luva the Hosey Ea Yin. Ado did the Bas, the Hiki Hatas Hiki, Sani Dohas Tweet Asi, Hatas Hiki, Corner the Dobas Meta Hostel that they got ego. Matsota. Kaya on nada or then eat do better husband that the compelagana skilo kista communication or yegi the quit hollow the that then a got on lane not as in the chapter meeting that next and that lay a cockot that an hanan I ego adole ben handre ben handre state a court the bas has tweedo sunny had asked a lot of elders don't highlight the Diego between now take understand it they don't understand I want a mother at the cat hat although now on I did ego between that is teen laco although did that will click in the bed at then as we talk about obviously had as leaders I got at the care and a call, I don't let Antrago. Yego. Yego, but the Kindahotter Agi, I don't let Conado, Nita, Nigon, he large at George Belacana. We have yato. They're represented. Do that are not. Do couldn't hit a that, Ada. And we have a call that has Twido Sani Benashnish. Elders a long time ago. The Kushina and Shada National Indian Council on Age and Olego forward. So that art ended Indians throughout United States. So that art ended a Hine Kako, the Connect, a Hine Kako, Washington. As we travel throughout this. Adolek and that Adolek and it's in our native law, the legislation, National American working together and working and or North American Indian Women's Association to and Strako. I worked in Indian Women throughout United States, but it's United States. A coco, ego, the Kodosan, Higaniki, ego, Kodosa, Shiki, ego. I got ego sada palanco, hot ego, kinecato, eight at it, I got a generation so to highlight the don't you all need that Indians need leanit uzon sholnit at tapelakana but epoholni that ashit a and that ashit a nash agi bikho kan shit nigo
given to us, yet at the same time to
was it
have the Western
up
culture
and
that we
then
have
it
to
ego yen
work with and try to work with.
Ado the con the quigo she yego pension scott ju agent a gauge kaya Bennett freeze no Latin that's nacha is to arge jo esto anfinant I the guy state there the stocky aid Nishin that is ebony na at the hot aid
and we're concerned with this area.
I see I yego ben attrapen ben scott esto arge gi ko that egi land dispute Navajo Hopi land dispute aid a yego shut up and scott akoko ako dat ego la kon kes beta hosen ko bela kanan shin ha agi benina big et hit a hoini and nafis enough hit a hoini negi ako et ado tan fitches in the list adon date our elderly people has tasked take it or get a sheet that they can't even write their name ado it's not has ago the resident that asa one as ado in the atin the number that the long that the no and the bed that the Nishedo number Nisheta how long ako kot ego di koto the Lanan Sunit ahas see
just to translate what she said. She said to thank you for letting her speak on behalf of her elders, and hopefully you understood what she is asking you. That's pretty much what her conclusion was.
Okay, our next speakers is Stephen Begay. And again, please keep in mind that we do have commissioners that are not members of the Navajo Nation that cannot speak Navajo. We do have Commissioner Watchman that can understand and hear Navajo, but each and every single one of our commissioners have to hear your issues and your concerns. So if we are going to continue with our Navajo translator translating from Navajo to English, we need to stop the Navajo speaker and then allow the Navajo translator to speak English, and then go back to the Navajo speaker and then back to the English translator, because this is being streamed throughout various parts of the state of Arizona, and we have to have everybody listen to the presentations. So if you'll bear with us.
Actually, excuse me, can I just make one quick comment because it's very relevant to what we just heard? I don't know if you can hear me. I want to make sure everybody is aware that on our agenda Tuesday morning is a presentation from our legal counsel on the Voting Rights Act, the recent Supreme Court decision, as it relates to Native American voting rights. And so everybody obviously has interest, so I encourage everybody to tune in on Tuesday.
That's Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, 9 o'clock Mountain Daylight Time. Stephen, thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle, and I'd like to thank the members of the Arizona Independent Redistricting Commission for having this hearing, and also the people from Edgar at the satellite station. My name is Stephen C. Begay, and I'm originally from the Tuba City area, Kuhlman Mesa area, and now I live in St. Michael's, Arizona, here near Window Rock. I've held various tribal positions, served as political appointees in the prior tribal administrations, and I feel I have a lot of experience, and also have a degree in accounting from Arizona State University. Listening to the session here, we're trying to concentrate on community of interest. For Navajo, it's land, water, treaty rights, a lot of things that are being brought out. that we're living under that's a little bit different from the outskirts of the reservation, the state and other places. So yeah, I understand the differences in business and so forth, but there are concerns here. For example, the uranium cleanup, the abandoned uranium mine cleanups. There's over 500 sites throughout the reservation. That's a common area of interest for health. There's also coal mining that has been done, power plants that have closed down. So there's reduced revenues from mining and also power production. It affects the transmission lines as well. So there's a decrease in overall economic activity from the resources that the Navajo Nation had. So right now, like the mine here, east of here, the Chevron McKinley mine, that's been mined out in 2004 and reclaimed in 2014. 7 years later, there are people still trying to get their permits back so that they can get their grazing permits so they can raise livestock. So there's another land issue there. And then there are 110 chapters throughout the reservation. There's 5 agencies, and they all correspond with the state, the county, and the federal government, especially in elections. So there's like 5 tiers of elections. It's very confusing. So that, you know, there's a lot of education that needs to take place there. That's a common area of interest, dealing with all these different governments. And then, as mentioned, there are people in wheelchairs out there on the reservation. When you do door-to-door canvassing, you run into these people. You find they invite you into their home. They can't even get out. They say, thank you for coming here. I get my mail, my kids or my relatives bring me my mail. I do my voting here, and they help me turn it in. I can't leave the house. So that's where permanent early voting lists that's being jeopardized now was very important. So you're going to be disenfranchising those people if you do away with that. Let's see here. I guess using up my time here. No gerrymandering. I know I'm hearing things. I-40 corridor. Respect the Navajo Nation and other tribal language, cultural, and tradition in their treaties. Treaties are public lands sometimes, allotted lands sometimes. Sometimes there's fee lands on reservations, different kinds of lands throughout the reservation. So don't stereotype the people and the politics and the issues that are on Navajo, but respect that it's a whole thing. And we're trying to keep together. We might be behind in a lot of areas, but we need help in a lot of those areas as well. And to just separate us and say, oh, you guys are different and we're different, that's not America. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. The next speaker is Janie Parish.
Hi. See, I'm one of the lucky ones. I actually have a computer. So, Yate, Janie Parish in Chia, the Bethlehem Nishle, Ashin Bashishin, Nakaidanet the Shite do Torchini. Edoshanada. My mother's from Window Rock. I grew up here in Window Rock. My father's from Kienta, and I also grew up there. My other maternal relatives are from Dilcon. So our families are across counties here in northeastern Arizona. We also have relatives married into Hopi and relatives married into White River. And so we travel to many of these places quite frequently for family gatherings, for ceremonies, and for just family celebrations. So the question about what a community of interest is interesting because I consider all of that my community, not just the borders of the Navajo Nation, because our people make their purchases. We support the border towns. Everybody knows every border town from Holbrook, Winslow, Sholo to either, they get our money because we do our shopping there. So we get our public services, our healthcare, our education. It's not uncommon for our community members, like some of my relatives, to drive every day 2 hours to go to work from here or to Flagstaff or even from Kayenta to other parts of the Navajo Nation and other states like in New Mexico. So it's a very interesting question, and I know it's not, you'll get a lot of input on what that means. But the question about community of interest is our current districts, which is LD6 and LD7. That's our whole community. We can go further because we're older than the counties, we're older than the state, we're older than the country. But all of us as tribal nations have shared characteristics that you've laid out on that paper. And we all share transportation. And like I said, CD1, Congressional District 1, is the most Native American district in the whole country, which includes Navajo, Hopi, and our nation and others. Nowhere else in the US do we have this. We have a shared population, we have shared interests, and we have to keep this tremendous, powerful group and community and family intact. There's no other way around it. The commission has to recognize all of our tribal nations in the state, but especially those here in Northeast Arizona. Because again, we live off of tribal lands, we're very transient, we go into a lot of places. And this is very critical. You guys have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, and I strongly suggest that what we have now is what's been working and good for us. And so keeping the Native voting power and representation is very much important and part of that. As part of my comments, though, I have two quick things that I think a lot of folks would have been here, but there needs to be better communication. Not a lot of people have the internet. I do. I'm a little bit younger. I know how to access things, but a lot of our voting people are elders. We had a hard time getting them out to vote, and we had to do that by old school offline strategy. So you guys have to do that too. Have a real good public campaign for them. There's nothing in the paper, there's nothing on the radios, and we have to make sure that that's there. So I think more people wouldn't be angry because they want to be heard, and those are my comments for right now. Thank you.
The next speaker.
That lady was the Apache County chair?
Janie? No, she wasn't. Navajo County. She's going to introduce herself again.
That's all right. No, my name is Janie Parish, and I'm a community organizer. And I am, before that, I was an advocate. I help people get out the vote. I'm an executive director to help with policy development in tribal lands. So that's who I am.
The next speaker is Ann Heightland.
Hello, my name is Ann Heightland. I am a resident of Coconino County, immediately outside of Flagstaff. I'm here because we care very much about Northeast Arizona in the greater Flagstaff area. We know that Arizona has grown substantially in the last 10 years, making your job difficult because it hasn't grown substantially enough to give us a 10th congressional district. With that in mind, I would like to consider that a large chunk of Arizona's population is concentrated in Maricopa County. But as you know, as you drive across this vast state, much of the land area of the state is rural. And those rural areas deserve representation in the United States Congress. Those rural areas represent what many people in Maricopa County love, as well as the people that live in these rural areas. Right now, we essentially have 2 congressional districts that represent rural Arizona, and I urge you to preserve at least 2 rural congressional districts so that ranchers, farmers, people who just enjoy living in rural Arizona have two voices in Congress from this state. Coconino County, where I live, has nearly 30% of its voters who are Native American. We share many values with them. When I say we, I mean those of us who live in the greater Flagstaff area and are not Native American. First of all, many Native Americans live in Flagstaff and essentially have second homes, either in Flagstaff or on the reservation. There's a lot of back and forth. They are integrated into our communities, and we share their values. We share their interests in things that the federal government can help us all with, like uranium mining cleanup, like dealing with water resources, like preserving and protecting our forests. Those are things that are federal issues, and we need a voice in Congress that represents all of the people in rural Arizona who share those interests. So for those reasons, I ask you to consider rural Arizona as a significant population that should have a large voice in Congress. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker and our last speaker is Leonard Gorman.
Okay. Good afternoon, members of the commission. You will get a package for the information my office wishes to share with you. I'm from the Navajo Nation Human Rights Commission office, and my office is detailed to interface with you as a body from the state of Arizona. We also interface with the New Mexico side and also the Utah side. So we have a tremendous responsibility to interact with you. We've done this the past several decennials. We've gone through the 2001, 2011, and now 2021 periods. And I hail to you your efforts as a body, as an institute, to recognize the VRA. That's your job. That's your number one job, to recognize and fulfill the requirements of the VRA. You have that responsibility. Otherwise, as it has happened in the past decennials, we end up in court all the time. So I think part of your agenda through the course of the next several months should be, we don't go to court. That should be a part of your agenda. But the package that you're supposed to receive is in the envelope. Did you receive that? You're all just looking at me, starry eyes.
We haven't received it yet, but I'm sure we will.
Okay. LD7 is a tremendous important district. It is the only Native American majority district. It is designed to respect and comply with the VRA. The Navajo Nation makes up a significant proportion. They have Havasupais, Wallapais to the west, and then the Apaches to the south. My brothers and sisters that raise concerns about the differences and disparities from the south, we have to work together. We have to live together. And we have common interests and we have commonality. And I think that commonality is the mighty dollar that we all share in one respect or another. Over $6 billion of Navajo money go off the Navajo Nation into the respective communities around the Navajo Nation. That includes Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. The threshold issue that you need to aspire and comply with is what exists today in LD7. LD7 has 63.1% Native American voting age population. You need to respect that and conform with that. Secondly, you also need to consider that Navajo is a cohesive nation. It's a community of interest in its own, and on the Navajo Nation, as we will be talking with the respective counties, chapter boundaries, political boundaries become communities of interest across the Navajo Nation. And then, how much time? And the threshold issues you need to consider is that you need to have 64.8% Native American voting age population in LD7 as we go forward. It's a very important issue. There's no division in that LD7 as far as congressional district is concerned. CD1 also is a very, very important district. In Arizona, as pointed out, it comprises of Native American voting age population that's the highest percentage in the state. So those are issues that you need to take into consideration. We will be spending a lot of time together. We'll know each other at the end of this cycle. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We do have one final speaker, Madam Chair and Commissioners, Barbara Silversmith.
Hello. My name is Barbara Silversmith. I would like to introduce myself in Navajo, which is a proper way of introduction to my Navajo people. Shade, the better Janin Strong here, Ani Bashis Chain, okay, that's a chase, that's another. Tanastio, Liana, go a son and the behadist, he get a ya, the compound, and again, I will just now switch to English. I want to welcome the committee to be able to come here and be with us, but I'm just disappointed that there's not a lot of the tribal delegates, tribal leaders here to hear all the Navajo people that have spoken, the input, and those delegates are supposed to take that information back to each of their communities. And I'm just quite surprised they're not here, but oh well. I've had the best of both worlds. I was born here in Apache County, Arizona. I was raised in Eager, Arizona. My father was a sawmill worker since the 60s. And I was a community servant, served as a courtroom supervisor with the Apache County Superior Court for 32 years. I retired about 8 years ago. So I've seen both sides, and I hope this is not an effort when you redistrict, an effort to try to divide the county as they have tried to do in the 1980s. There was a case presented by a local attorney to divide the county, but it didn't work. I don't know if it was presented again, that part I don't remember. And in the late 60s, I was not very old then, but I remember my parents talking about it. My uncle, Tom Shirley, was the first Navajo supervisor elected to the Board of Supervisors. So prior to that, the Apache County was represented by 3 members from the southern part of the county for many years. So as far as funding went, I don't know if the Navajo people were represented or if they got funding from the county back then prior to Tom Shirley being elected. So with this redistricting, like I said, I hope it's not an effort to divide the county again. My parents have been taxpayers since the 1960s. I know the case about between the Navajos and the Hopis about the water issues. That case is very old. I don't know if it ever got settled because when I retired, it was still going. A very, very, very old case. I agree with Ms. Heightland's comments concerning the ranching part because my husband and I do ranching there. We retired in St. John's. We still have kids that live in the Round Valley area. I also thank Mr. J. Platt for the comments he's made, and that was quite an insight, mentioning all the other counties, how it affects the redistricting in other counties, which I was not aware of. The other thing I wanted to mention too is I guess my 3 minutes is up, so, but like I said, I hope that redistricting goes well and you consider the Navajos. Navajos are being elected to the state offices now, and I'm glad our voices are being heard. My parents still have a home here on the reservation, and I still have a home off the reservation, and I pay my share of taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair and Commissioners and the listening public, that is our last speaker here in Window Rock.
On behalf of myself and my fellow commissioners, I want to thank those who have spoken today. I want to thank the people that attended in Eager and for their comments. We take your comments very, very seriously. We will make sure we get translations of the one or two speakers that we did not understand ourselves, but we will make sure that we get those. And again, I want to really appreciate your participation today. Also, as our presenters showed earlier in the meeting,